I don't know about you guys, but I'm really tired right now. And that's for a variety of reasons, but a big part of it is whenever I take out my phone to check the time, I end up getting hit in the face by a truckload of information. There's 1,000 voices pounding in my head, and I want it all to slow down and stop, but I also can't seem to tear my eyes away from the screen. We live in an age where information is constantly flowing in, and there's just so much going on all of the time. And the thing is, sometimes it feels like we're consuming endless information and yet still not able to do much about any of it. That's definitely been my experience, and I use social media as a way to stay updated on the latest climate news, both the good and the bad. Last year has been, and this year as well, has been a bit more the latter than the former. Last year was the hottest year on record, and we've been dealing with everything from cyclones to bushfires to floods to heat waves, and just everything seems to be hitting us all at once. And the thing is, and also with the US president pulling the world's second largest polluter out of the global climate accord, it's left me feeling like I have to hold my breath every time I take that cold plunge back into the world of climate doom. And you might be wondering, what is climate doom? I can sum it up for you in 3 words, which is, it's too late. It's essentially the idea that we're past the point of being able to do anything about climate change. And according to Elena Woods, who is a sustainability scientist from Tennessee, the idea of climate doom comes from a variety of places, but a big part of this mindset actually comes from young people like me. And this is for a pretty understandable reason. There are people who are climate activists and they want to make a difference, but they also are so scared. And so they feel that they need to spread fear-based content in order to make that difference. The thing is, in Australia, we spend an average of 5 to 6 hours a day, every day, consuming information online in some way, shape, or form. Whenever we consume information, it's coming in at us. And when we're consuming all of this information all at once, it can be so easy to feel trapped, to feel like we're consuming so much and yet not being able to do much about it at all. For young people like me, and as a student as well, there's very little time in my day to really get super involved with activism, especially during the school term. Things like academic pressures and family responsibilities, and the need to also balance all of my friendships means that, when I come home at the end of the day, it's pretty hard for me to kickstart the next eco-revolution. And this is a big part of the reason why a lot of people from my generation end up feeling trapped and anxious and worried about the climate future. But what I want to talk about today is that this doesn't have to be the case. We don't have to feel like we have to do everything in order to do something. The thing is, currently, young people are consuming information every day at an alarming rate, and yet we have so little venues to really output that information. And as I'm 16 and I'm in year 10, I've gone from this exact same position, to, feeling trapped by the system, to now being able to proudly say that I'm involved in a wide variety of activism, from actually starting my own podcast this year to volunteering with the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, as well as writing for different publications like the Herald Sun on my thoughts on climate change and its impact on young people. That's kind of been my journey, but I want to talk about how I kind of got here. And that's been the result of one big mindset change, which is that we need to switch from passive consumption to active production. You might be thinking, okay, I've heard that before. Action is the antidote to despair, right? But what does that even look like in a sustainability context? The thing is, in a sustainability context, when you're juggling schoolwork or you're hustling to pay rent, it can feel pretty annoying for someone to be yelling in your ear to go produce something because you already have a mile-long to-do list and you don't have much space to add anything else to that list. But my mindset change has been that we don't need to add more to our plates in order to produce more things. We can just redirect what we're already doing. And this isn't hypothetical either. You can think about the Library of Things movement, which is where people are renting out their things, from camping gear to drills to toasters, so that people in their community don't have to buy things that they'll use once and then throw away. Or maybe you guys have seen the repair cafes that are popping up in Melbourne and Sydney, all around Australia, and even all around the world, where you can get your broken household goods fixed for free of charge and meet like-minded people while doing it and gain a little bit of hope for the future of sustainability. So the thing is here, these aren't some kind of glossy NGO. These are people who are working in their own garages and in their group chats to produce real solutions and to gain hope together. I used to think that in order to be perfectly sustainable, I had to do everything myself. So I had to recycle perfectly. I had to go protest every weekend. I had to cut out plastic entirely from my life. But that's just not realistic. And if you try and do everything yourself, you can end up burning out and feeling like you've failed when it's just, a natural thing to not be able to do everything yourself. But instead, I've realized that sustainability has nothing to do with, with being perfect all the time. And it has everything to do with being purposeful. So I mentioned before that I started my own podcast. And so my purpose has actually been podcasting. So my podcast, bit of a shameless plug here, but my podcast is called Taught Not Told, Life Lessons That Stick. And it's basically a way for older generations to pass on their life wisdom to younger generations. And I think, you guys will probably know when you're young and someone tells you, you have to go do this thing, it can feel like you're being lectured and it can be pretty annoying. So the purpose of my podcast is for people to be able to tell their life stories and for young people to hear those stories and broaden their mindset and broaden their scope of the world and to not feel like they're being lectured at the same time. So this is an example of what I mean by depth over breadth. So what could that look like for all of you? It could be on a local scale or even on a broader scale. But for example, you could transform your own, love for art into posters for the local farmers market to teach people about food miles. It could really be anything. You could start your own sustainability book club at the local library, or just transform something that you love and are already doing into something that might help our future. So what now exactly? You guys probably know that yesterday the federal election time was announced, and we're in the midst of an election right now. This is very powerful because this year is actually a pretty historic election because young people, so Gen Z and millennials, are actually outnumbering baby boomers for the first time in an election. So there's a huge will to act to do something about it. So the formula is pretty simple. We have people who are willing to act, and we have leaders who need our votes. So if we put those two together, we can change. So what I'm saying to you now is we have all of the pieces that we really need, and all we need to do is to put them together. Thank you.